Today is Friday, August 15, 2014, the 227th day of the year. There are 138 days remaining until the end of 2014. On this day in 1915, a front-page story in the New York World newspaper reveals that the Imperial German government has purchased excess phenol from Thomas Edison that could be used to make explosives for the war effort. They've diverted it to Bayer for aspirin production. First of all, the New York World is published in New York City from 1860 to 1931. In 1883, the aggressive publisher Joseph Pulitzer acquires the paper and directs the paper to the highest circulation and advertising revenue in New York City. When young West Coast publisher William Randolph Hearst comes east and buys the journal American, he and Pulitzer engage in a vigorous circulation war, front-paging the most sensational stories they can find to engage the basest instincts of newspaper readership to sell tens of thousands of newspapers. Pulitzer acquires a press that can print in 4 colors, launches a Sunday supplement with full-page broadsheet comic strips. Hearst follows, poaching Pulitzer's most popular artists, building them up. It's popularly known as the rise of yellow journalism after Pulitzer's signature strip, The Yellow Kid. This great phenol plot of 1915 sells a lot of newspapers for Pulitzer's world. Phenol is carbolic acid derived from coal oil or petroleum. It's useful for many things. It's essential for plastics manufacturing. Your eyeglass lenses are made from it, so are bottles. Your water and soft drinks come in. Nylons for stockings, detergents, phenoxyherbicides such as Agent Orange, famously used in Vietnam to defoliate broadleaf jungle forests. Also, Roundup that you use in your garden. Explosives, aspirin, useful stuff. In 1915, Thomas Edison uses British-made phenol to manufacture his diamond disc phonograph records. Most records in those pre-vinyl days are made of easily breakable shellac. Edison's records are marginally more durable. When British phenol becomes hard to get, and all the more expensive because the Brits need all they can get to make bombs to maintain that Western Front stalemate in France, Edison builds factories in New Jersey to make his own phenol because that's how Edison rolls. He's Tom Edison, damn it, war or no war. The German pharmaceutical manufacturer Bayer has its own problems. They've just built an American plant over in Rensselaer, New York, our good pals to the south, to churn out aspirin, but they can't buy British phenol to make the salicylic acid. That's aspirin's active ingredient. In addition to killing millions of Europeans, combatants, and civilians, this fricking war is very bad for business too. So the Germans cook up an elaborate plot to buy Edison's excess phenol, which is essentially legal because even though there's a war on, the U.S. is still neutral. It just don't look good. Our pals, the Brits, are breaking their necks to make as much of this phenol stuff as they can so they can blow up Germans and Americans, Edison mainly, selling phenol to the Germans so they can make aspirin to sell to the Brits so they can take 2 and call in the morning when they get their limbs shot off in France. War. What is it good for? Well, it turns out to be pretty good for Tom Edison. He's selling hot phonograph records all over America, and it's good for the German pharmaceutical manufacturer Bayer, selling aspirin for all the headaches induced by all that noise the war makes. Cripes, can you guys just pipe down for a minute? I'm trying to listen to my new Sophie Tucker record. On this day in 1935, Will Rogers and Wiley Post are killed after their aircraft develops engine problems during takeoff at Point Barrow, Alaska. Will Rogers, an Oklahoma cowboy, vaudevillian, early 20th century Broadway and movie star, and syndicated newspaper columnist in the 1920s and 30s, who enjoys unprecedented fame and fanatical admiration. As a cowboy, he's an expert with the lariat, putting together a broad repertoire of impressive riding and rope tricks. Together with one-liners, observations, jokes, he becomes a well-paid headliner in vaudeville, then in New York with Ziegfeld's Follies. Traveling around the world 3 times with his act. He makes 71 movies, silents, talkies, at the time of his death, highest paid actor in Hollywood, and he writes more than 4,000 syndicated newspaper columns. He's friends with fellow Oklahoman and aviator Wiley Post and visits the Burbank Airport, where Post is modifying his Lockheed Orion Explorer for an expedition to survey a mail and passenger route from the West Coast to Russia via Alaska. Rogers has an interest in aviation. He suggests the two take a summer trip through Alaska so Rogers can gather material for his column. They fly to Seattle in late July and then press on to Alaska in early August. Point Barrow in the borough of North Slope, Alaska, is a headland of the Arctic Sea, the northernmost point in Alaska, some 40 miles southwest of Murchison Promontory, northernmost point in North America. Another 1,100 miles north and you're at the North Pole. By any account, a remote spot. Rogers and Post, disoriented in soupy weather, land in a lagoon to ask for bearings. Despite Point Barrow's remoteness, the place is inhabited continuously for at least 1,500 years by native tribes. Upon takeoff, the Lockheed engine fails at low altitude, plunges into the lagoon, shearing off the right wing, inverting in the shallows. Will Rogers, 56, and Wiley Post, 36, die in the crash on this day in 1935. Will Rogers says there are three kinds of men: the ones that learn by reading, the ones who learn by observation. The rest of them have to pee on the electric fence for themselves. From Rutland, Vermont, this is Richard Alcott speaking.